Wong. Holy crap. Hey guys, this week's video is on the story of the Necromancer Order from the Diablo franchise, who are the only instance of Necromancers being among the good guys that we're familiar with. The Necromancers of Diablo fame are also just straight up cool. In fact, ever since Diablo 2, they've been Isaac's favorite class. A fact that has not changed in any way with their reintroduction in Diablo 3. We're going to go over how they started, what they're all about, and why they're good guys despite the whole, necromancy thing. Before we really get started though, we did do a video on the history of Sanctuary last week. This video will touch lightly on a few events that are discussed in more detail there, and while it's not required to have seen our last video to watch this one, we do explain all the important bits. Having seen the Sanctuary video will make watching this one a more complete experience.
So, first things first, some disambiguation. Necromancer is the term that outsiders use for these people. The Necromancers refer to themselves as the Priests of Rathma. This is an important distinction, because although in modern day, the time period in which the games take place, the Priests of Rathma are the sole practitioners of necromancy, this was not always the case. As in most fantasy realities where necromancy is possible, the public's opinion of it ranges from frowning upon the practices to outright distrust and hostility towards necromantic practices and their practitioners. In the case of the Diablo verse, the reasons for this are twofold. First, necromancy is a common practice and capability among the demons. Reasons why that fact would make humanity uncomfortable should be fairly clear. Second, likely as a result of the aforementioned demonic practices, those who summoned demons in the days of old quite often also employed necromancy. As such, even if the art of necromancy hadn't already been somewhat unsettling on its own, it was given a bad name due to relations with other unsavory practices. Because of this, necromancy has been labeled by the general populace and even most of the magical societies as a so-called dark art, along with demonology and other foul magics. The Priests of Rathma, however, are different, and neither now nor ever in the past practiced any of the various forms of demonology. In fact, the only link between demons and the Priests of Rathma is they kill them, wherever and whenever they can.
To understand why, we're going to go all the way back to the beginnings of the world of Sanctuary, to the very first practitioner of necromancy. This being was not just the first necromancer, however. He was also the very first Nephilim. Lunarian, son of Inarius and Lilith. If you watch our lore video on Diablo's World of Sanctuary, that name may sound vaguely familiar. Firstborn of both the Nephilim and Sanctuary itself, Lunarian spent a good portion of his early years burrowed deep underground, studying the flow and passage of both life and death. And it was from these studies that he first began to understand and master the art of necromancy. It was also during this unspecified number of years that he was brought to the realization of what he considered to be an irrefutable truth. So long as reality existed, both light and dark, good and evil, would clash. And while the clash was important, it could easily threaten the world if its balance were ever skewed enough to grant one side or the other victory.
Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance.
That was the way of things, the eternal conflict. He was given a perfect example of this in his parents, as their opposing viewpoints resulted in the genocide of his parents' fellow angels and demons, as well as the neutering of Lunarian's own people, the Nephilim.
This realization was the start, the spark of the Priests of Rathma. But it may have remained merely that, the smoldering ember of an idea, if not for another figure. Trag'oul, Guardian of Sanctuary. Trag'oul is, so far as we have researched, the single hardest being to get information on. What we do know is this. Trag'oul was an ally to Lunarian. He taught Lunarian of the concept of the balance, the term for the previously mentioned idea of the constant struggle between good and evil, light and dark, heaven and hell. He also schooled him in the arts of necromancy. It is in part because of Trag'oul that Lunarian became the world's first necromancer. He was a dragon-like creature of some kind, with at least 3 different descriptions of his appearance, all or none of which may be entirely accurate. As previously mentioned, he is also referred to as the Guardian of Sanctuary. As such, his goals are simple. The continued flourishing and existence of Sanctuary and its people, which he believes can best or perhaps only be achieved through the adherence to the balance, by keeping both evil and good at bay in mankind, but also being certain that one ideal never overpowers the other. For evil, if all-consuming, does just that. It consumes. But good also needs to be taken in moderation. For though it is a better alternative than evil, worlds of pure good that have forgotten or never known evil will stagnate and decay. A truth evidenced by both heaven and hell's attempts to create worlds on their own, prior to the creation of Sanctuary, a world made by and of both good and evil, light and dark. In the interest of preserving the balance, Trag'oul and Lenarian joined forces, working together quietly, tirelessly, through the ages to try and maintain the balance in Sanctuary, curbing the influences of both heaven and hell where they could and when needed. Necromancy wasn't the only gift given to Lenarian by Trag'oul, however. The guardian dragon of Sanctuary apparently spoke its own language, separate from that of heaven, hell, or Sanctuary, and it was from this tongue that Lenarian took the name by which most of history would remember him, Rathma. The word meant student in Trag'oul's tongue, and at some point Lenarian took on the moniker as his own name, and would continue to bear it for the rest of his life.
Thus was he called when he and Trag'oul first encountered Mendel many centuries later. Mendel was the brother of Odyssean, a major if largely forgotten character from Sanctuary's history. Like Odyssean, Mendel was an awakened Nephilim, and despite some very rocky beginnings and distrust that took a very long time to get over, Mendel eventually allied himself with Rathma, Trag'oul, and the concept of the balance. All three would play major roles in helping Odyssean to save Sanctuary from the ravages of both the Primevals and the Angiras Council during the Sin Wars. But it was after that Mendel's true legacy would be made. In the aftermath of the conflict, when the Angiras Council voted to spare Sanctuary, the Nephilim, and humanity from destruction, they did so with a caveat. All of the Adiram, Odyssean's Nephilim soldiers, including Mendel, would have their memories of the events and their deeds during the Sin Wars, and thus the knowledge of the Nephilim powers, erased. Somehow, between the efforts of Mendel, Rathma, and Trag'oul, Mendel was spared the memory wipe, and it is through his later writings in the books of Kalin that we have most of the available knowledge concerning the true history of the Sin Wars. The books are so named because, like Rathma, Mendel took on a name based from Trag'oul's own language, Kalin. Though he was Rathma's apprentice, Mendel is depicted as having tremendous skill in the arts of necromancy. It could even be inferred that his talent, if not his skill, for the art, was greater even than that of Rathma. We mention this because, ironically, while Mendel's instructor in necromancy, Rathma, was named Student, Mendel, the student, would take on the name Kalin, or Teacher.
The name would prove fitting, however, as in the wake of the Sin Wars, once Rathma was satisfied with Kalin's training in and understanding of both necromancy and the balance, the first Nephilim charged his student with a duty. Up until this point, Rathma and Trag'oul had worked almost entirely alone to secure the balance in Sanctuary. That wouldn't do going forward, and Rathma knew that even he would cease to be one day. So he instructed Kalin to form an order of like-minded brothers and sisters, men and women dedicated to the balance, with the power to effect change and correct imbalances in the world. And thus, the priests of Rathma were born. Kalin found and trained those with a mind for the balance and a talent for necromancy, bringing them together deep in the eastern jungles of Kyrgyzstan, the same country that is home to such in-game locations as Kurast and Chaldeum. These students would go on to master necromancy, find and train their own pupils, and seek to use their powers to right the balance in the world, eventually becoming the priests of Rathma as we know them today.
The core tenet of the priests of Rathma is that the balance is of the utmost importance. As long as the balance remains stable, good people may die and tyrants may have their heyday, but all will continue, the world will keep spinning, and the cycle of life and death will renew, as it always has. It is from this philosophy that the most striking difference between Rathma's priests and nearly all other practitioners of necromancy in any fiction arises. Where most necromancers seem to look at death as either something to conquer, something to avoid, or something with which to consume all life, the priests of Rathma look at death instead as simply a part of the cycle of life.
Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
Yes, Simba, but let me explain. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
All things live, all things rot, all things die. And then the death of the old nourishes the growth and life of the new.
That's what really makes Diablo's necromancers more than just villains throwing undead at their enemies. Not the fact that they're not going to waylay a random town for fun, power, and profit, but the fact that they don't bastardize a corpse just because they can, instead using the dead as tools to protect the world of the living. That is what defines the priests of Rathma. protect the balance, and protect Sanctuary from whoever threatens it, be they angel, demon, or even human.
And that's basically the story of Diablo's Necromancers, the priests of Rathma, the Grey Jedi of the Diabloverse, champions of the balance and wearers of fine, creepy bone. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like. If you'd like us to do more on this or other topics, please let us know in the comments down below. And if you'd like to see more from us, be they lore or let's play, please hit subscribe. We hope you had an awesome Thanksgiving, and in the meantime, this has been
Two Men and a Mic, signing off. Hey guys, you can click the link in the left for our last lore video.
You can click the link on the right for our last Let's Play.
And right here in the middle, that orb, you can hit that to subscribe.
Also, ring the bell if you want to be notified when we post a new video.
This is Two Men and a Mic. Thanks for watching.